Having now filled in some of the history of the thousands of years of the British Isles before the beginning of our story of the Stone of Destiny, we can return to hear more about our travellers who arrived in 583 BC. We've seen how the stone was taken from Tara to Dunseverick and to Iona for the coronation of Fergus Mór Mac, and to the mainland at Dunstafnage and across to Scone on the orders of Kenneth MacAlpin, where it was kept as a coronation stone for 450 years, and then to London and Westminster Abbey for the next 700 years by Edward I of England, and back to Edinburgh in 1996. So how was it that the stone came to Tara? It's now time to start our story from the very beginning. What then were the origins claimed for the stone that was brought here to the hill at Tara? Using the records of history given in the Bible, we can read in Genesis of the dream which Jacob, Isaac's son and the grandson of Abraham, had when escaping from the anger of his brother Esau. The dream was of Jacob at the foot of a ladder reaching to the sky, being told that he and his family had been given a blessing. When he woke up the following morning, Jacob set on end the stone which he had been using to rest his head, and marked it. He then went to meet his uncle's family, and eventually married into it, and after many years returned with his considerable family and wealth to be reconciled with his older brother Esau. With such a solid and portable reminder of his dream, it's understandable that the stone would be a part of the family heritage and in the course of time become an enormously treasured possession. According to ancient Irish legend, the Stone of Destiny is that same stone that Jacob used as a pillow when he had his famous dream, and there is scientific evidence in support of this tradition. In 1936, G.S. Blake published a report called The Stratigraphy of Palestine and its Building Stones. He compared fragments from the stone in the coronation chair with pieces of sandstone brought from the Bethel area, and he concluded that there was no difference geologically between the two. Indeed, they could have come from the same stone. What's more, he also pointed out that that kind of sandstone isn't found in Britain. So how did a piece of sandstone treasured by an ancient patriarch in Palestine come to be in Ireland? Jacob was born in 1836 BC. His dream happened in about 1760 BC. He returned to his brother in about 1739 BC. And Jacob took his family to Egypt in the famine in 1706 BC. He died in Egypt in about 1689 BC at the age of 147. Jacob had 12 sons. But because of a variety of events we should be looking at in a later program, the royal line, the scepter, was not given to the eldest, Reuben, but to his fourth son, Judah. The birthright, which Jacob had originally obtained by deception from his elder brother Esau, was given to Joseph. When the Israelites first took possession of Palestine in the years following the Exodus from Egypt in 1450 BC, each tribe was allocated its own territory. And the capital of Judah, Jerusalem, was the capital city of everyone. But after the death of Solomon in about 980 BC, 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel formed their own kingdom and moved away from Jerusalem, making their capital Samaria. It's those tribes that moved north and west after their capital Samaria was captured by the Assyrians in about 725 BC. It's perhaps worth reminding ourselves that the Jews are not all 12 tribes of Israel, but just the 2 tribes that stayed with their capital city as Jerusalem, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. One of the final destinations of the 10 tribes who left Samaria was Britain. And there are records of Celtic settlers in Britain as long ago as 1450 BC, which is about the same time as Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. This amazing story is of a piece of stone first set up as a pillar in Bethel and treasured by Israel's family through 4,000 years of history, passed on as a piece of family folklore for all those centuries because it was so important. The place of the stone in the desert was chosen as the place where the first king of Israel was crowned. And the kings of the royal house of Judah have been crowned on this stone of destiny ever since. From King David and his son King Solomon to Fergus Mór Mac Cearc, who had the stone taken to Scotland, and then all the kings of Dalriada who were crowned at Scone, and all the British kings and queens who were crowned at Westminster for thousands of years on the same stone. Here at Tara there is a standing stone known as the Lia Foyle, which marks the highest point of the hill of Tara. And it is thought that it marks the spot where the original stone stood before it was taken to Dunseverick and on to Scotland. This is the Lia Foyle, and you can see behind me and all around just how much this hill dominates the whole of the landscape, and this point in particular. Both ownership and possession of the original Stone of Destiny have been prized by both the Scots and the Irish, as well as the English, over the years, but there are no serious claims that the Irish Lia Foyle here at Tara is the genuine stone which was brought from Bethel. The Scots have always expressed reservations about whether the stone taken by Edward I from Scone in 1296 was the original Stone of Destiny or a substitute. Blake's findings would appear to confirm that it was indeed the original stone. This tumulus, about 150 yards to the north of the Lia Foyle, is the Mound of the Hostages. It's an ancient burial mound thought to date back to about 2500 BC. Inside the entrance is a stone with the kind of markings which are common throughout Ireland. These markings tell the stories important to the ancients who commissioned them, in a language which has only recently begun to be understood. About 30 miles northwest of Tara are many more ancient burial mounds. One of them at the top of the highest hill is surrounded by several smaller mounds, but the most prominent leads one to believe that it is the burial place of the most important and respected person of his whole era. I'm in the county of Royal Meath, near Kells, and this is the pathway up towards Cairn T at Loch Crew. At the foot of the cairn in front of me now is a fascinatingly shaped stone, sometimes referred to as the Judgment Seat, where it is said that the kings of Ireland were crowned. Ooh. And what a wonderful view. Jacob's pillar had always been a treasure of the royal tribe of Judah as they journeyed across lands and through time, from David, the greatest king of Israel, and his son Solomon, who built the temple in Jerusalem about 1000 BC, and all through the years of all the kings that followed, up to Zedekiah, the last king of Judah, custodian of the scepter and of the Stone of Destiny for almost 1200 years. In 589 BC, Jerusalem, Judah's capital city, was captured by Nebuchadnezzar, and King Zedekiah and his people were taken into captivity into Babylon. The king was then made to watch as his sons were all killed before he himself was blinded. There would be no heirs to the throne of the royal house of Israel. This story is told by Jeremiah in the Bible. What Zedekiah's captors did not know was that he had daughters, only young children at that time. And it was Jeremiah's task to take at least one of these daughters to safety so that the royal house of Israel could rebuild itself and prosper once again. And through archaeology, language and legend, the journey that Jeremiah took with Tefi and his secretary Simon Baruch can be traced through Egypt and the Kaza el Bint el Yehudi, the house of the Jewish princess where two of the sisters perished, across the Mediterranean to Gibraltar, northwards through Spain and on to Ireland, the burial place of that prophet Jeremiah, the Jeremiah who wrote the book in the Bible, a man of enormously powerful influence who travelled from the Middle East through Spain and on to Ireland and Tara, bringing with him the daughter of Zedekiah, who would marry the king of Ireland at Tara, a member of a different branch of the tribe of Judah. And they would secure an heir to the throne of the royal house, and with them came the stone which Jacob set up as a pillar at Bethel, the stone of destiny, the signet of the royal house of Israel. This is how and why the stone of destiny came to Ireland over the sea with Jeremiah, Olam Fula, the prophet. And here beside me is Jeremiah's tomb, Cairn T at Loch Crew. We know this from the markings here on the 3 stones in the chamber, one on each side at the entrance, and the third one in the darkness at the far end of the tunnel. Before we look at the markings on those particular stones, we'll have a look at one of the burial chambers further down the hill. And you can see similar marks on the stones inside of these graves that have collapsed and are now open to the weather. But the marks are still clearly here. For instance, over here, we've got all of these circular carvings that are very clearly distinguishable. In 1873, the markings on the stones in Cairn T were studied and copied by Eugene Conwell, who wrote about them in The Discovery of the Tomb of Olam Fula. Olam Fula meaning wise man. He recognized that the stones and tombs were enormously important, but he knew that he didn't understand enough about them. He also recognized that the marks were rapidly eroding away, so in order for them to be preserved clearly for future archaeological study, he copied them. And we can see the original marks more clearly on his diagrams superimposed on the 2 stones. Jeremiah's ship, the Tyrian ship carved on the stone, has 5 perpendicular lines symbolizing the 5 passengers: Jeremiah, Simon Baruch his scribe, Tefi and her 2 handmaidens. The wavy line leads west, symbolizing a sea journey over the waves, to a point where it shows a differently shaped boat, with only 4 lines in it. The passenger left behind was Simon Baruch, who died at Gibraltar. The wavy line leads west to Ireland, commonly depicted on many such stones as the spiral, shown in the top left-hand corner. And as if to give emphasis on a second stone, there's another diagram showing that only 4 people arrived at Tara, on the bottom right-hand corner of the stone at the far end of the tunnel. At the top of the picture of the stone at the entrance is a bird with a twig, referring to the young Jewish princess who would in due course be married to Herriman at Tara and continue the royal line. Other markings refer to the configuration of the stars at that time, and it can be calculated astronomically that the date of the burial of Jeremiah in this tomb was the 21st of September 581 BC, 7 years after the fall of Jerusalem. The passage into this tomb is lined up so that the sun shines directly into it on the autumn equinox, the 21st of September. the date of Jeremiah's burial. This then is the remarkable story of how the Stone of Destiny was brought to the British Isles from Palestine 2,500 years ago by the prophet Jeremiah, who brought with him Teotefi, the young Jewish princess who was to continue the royal line of the House of Judah, a line which can be traced through to the present British royal family. It's a solid reminder of the ancestry of the British royal family, which goes back to David, king of Israel, of the tribe of Judah, which carried the scepter of the royal family of the House of Israel. This story was well known 100, 200, 500 and 1,000 years ago, but for some reason it's not now being preserved as part of the British heritage. We asked at the beginning of this film, what does the word British mean? The word Brit means covenant, and the word Ish means people. The word British means covenant people, and Britain is the covenant island. And we shall return to hear more of the unfinished story of the Stone of Destiny later on.